Sit down. Let me tell you something people don't like to hear. It hurts, but it needs to be said. I was just a boy, running barefoot in the yard, the hot African soil under my feet. My mother used to call my name in the middle of the smell of food, the sound of animals, the heat of life, and I pretend not to hear, just to play a little longer. I had a little brother always chasing after me, laughing for no reason. My father, a strong man, taught me how to fish. Life was simple, but it was mine. Then one day, the sky darkened without clouds. They came on horses, shouting in a strange language, hitting, burning, taking everything. My village turned into silence and fire. They grabbed me. I fought. My mother held me tight, like the world was ending, and it did. They tore her from me, beat me until I stopped screaming. In that moment, I stopped being a son, stopped being a boy. I became property. From then on, all I heard was the sound of the sea and the sway of that cursed ship. But in here, right here, Tap's chest, it never went away. They taught me to forget, but I never could. They threw us into that ship like we were animals. No names anymore, just numbers, screams, and moans. The bottom of the hold was damp, slippery with blood, urine, and despair. The air was thick, like we were breathing death. People vomiting, crying, begging to die, all mixed together, like one person's pain belonged to everyone. I remember a woman next to me screaming her child's name. She screamed until her voice broke. Then she screamed with her eyes. And then nothing, never. Heard a sound from her again. Another boy younger than me died crushed in the corner. And no one could do anything, not even move his body. He stayed there, lying on top of others, like he was still breathing. I leaned against the ship's wall, tried to sleep, but sleep never came. When I closed my eyes, I saw my village, my father teaching me how to set traps, my mother washing clothes by the river, my little sister dancing with the other girls, so vivid, so warm, and there I was, in the cold belly of a ship, surrounded by groans and silence. Some days we didn't know if it was night or day. They only opened the hatch to check if we were still alive. They threw water, threw rat and food, beat anyone who took too long to get up. I grew skinny. My belly stuck to my back. The bones in my face felt like they were trying to tear through my skin. Still, I kept dreaming it was awesome. Tricked by the gods, that one day they'd open the door and say, "Go home, boy." But they didn't, and when they did open it, it was to line us up like market animals. They touched my arms, my teeth, my legs, turned me around like I was a sack of grain, spoke words I didn't understand, but I could see it in their eyes. It wasn't respect. It was interest. I was merchandise. A man pointed at me, said something. They pulled me by the arm and took me. I looked back, shelter from my village taken. Another way. I wanted to scream, but my throat hurt too much. I walked with shaky legs. The sun outside blinded me after so long in darkness. I felt my skin burn, but I couldn't stop. They put me in a kind of cart with others, and we were taken. No one said anything, just the sound of wheels and the crack of the whip. And there I was, trying to remember my mother's name, trying to hear her voice again, but it felt like the sea had washed it away. In that cart, I truly felt alone for the first time, a void no hunger could fill. We arrived at a place with fences, big houses, and a strange smell of smoke and sweat. They told me to get down, pushed me to a corner. A white man came with a hot iron, and I understood what was about to happen. I screamed before it touched me, but no one cared. The iron burned my arm, and they gave me a new name, My old name, the real one, burned inside. They said I was that now, that my life was here, serving, but inside me, something screamed. It wasn't just pain, it was the memory of who I was. I didn't know if it was day or night, if it had been a month or a year. Since I was taken from my land, I only knew I was alive, and as long as I was alive, even if barely, I would hold on to everything they tried to make me forget. Every night I lay on that hard ground, even with my body aching. I forced myself to remember my mother's face, my father's laughter, the smell of my home, because that was all I had left. The rest, they could take, but those memories, no, one could touch. I no longer understood the words around me, but inside me still echoed the songs of my people, and sometimes, when no one was watching, I whispered them softly, like calling the spirits to help me not forget. They taught me to forget, but I never could. I remember the first time I stepped into that plantation like someone entering a place where the soul goes to die. I was just a boy, but the weight on my shoulders was already that of an old man. Everything smelled of stale sweat, rotting wood, and blood hidden in the dirt floor. I looked around and saw others like me, some with lost eyes, others with silent rage. The big house looked like a castle, all white, up on the hill, as if it owned even the sky. The slave quarters were way down below, buried in a valley where the sun barely reached. It felt like we were shadows of what once had been people. In the beginning, I didn't say anything. I just listened. I was afraid to even breathe wrong. They gave me a name that wasn't mine and told me to forget everything I left behind. But I couldn't. Inside my head, my mother's voice still called me by my real name, the one that gave me meaning. When the pain got too much, I whispered it quietly, as if that could protect me from vanishing completely. The day started to blur. I woke up before the light, my body ached, but the fear of the whip kept us moving. Working the cane fields was a war against the sun. The insects, the time that never passed. I saw people faint and stand up again by shouting. I saw boys forced to become men, and old men become just memory after punishment. With every cut of sugar cane, it felt like a piece of me stayed behind, but no one could stop. Death came faster than rest, and even so, there was hidden beauty in the misery. When night fell and the overseer disappeared, we gathered in silence. Someone started a song, another replied with a stomp. That was when I saw we were still human, that inside each of us was a story no one could erase. I remember an old woman who taught me to pray with closed eyes and an open heart. She said the Orishas heard what the white man could not understand. I learned to ask for protection in silence. I learned every leaf in the forest could be medicine or poison, depending on who used it. I had to learn to hide pain, swallow tears, and smile inside from spite. Once, I tried to run. The woods were dense, dark, like the earth itself pulled me back. I was caught before reaching the river. They beat me so badly I thought I'd never stand again. But I did, because dying there meant giving victory to the master. And I had lost everything but my will to be free. One day, I saw a child born in the slave quarters. Her cry was the purest sound I had ever heard. We all gathered round her like it was a miracle, and it was. It was proof that life insisted. Her mother told me she would be free one day. I believed her, because believing was all we had left. Every night, while my body rested, my mind ran far away, to my village, to my mother's arms, to the smell of the forest after rain. And even if my language had been ripped away, even if my skin was marked, my spirit was still mine. Pain taught me how to resist, silence taught me how to listen, and memory kept me from disappearing. They taught me to forget, but I never could, because forgetting would mean ceasing to exist, and I clung to every memory like a thread of light in the dark. That's how I survived. The time I spent in that slave quarters taught me that freedom isn't just a place to run to, but a flame that must live inside your chest, even when everything outside seems designed to snuff it out. The dirty walls and the strong smell of sweat mixed with fear surrounded me every day, but inside I kept stories no one could take away. I saw the eyes of others trapped like me, and there, in those moments, we understood each other without speaking. Pain and longing made us silent accomplices. Every day, the fight wasn't just to survive, but not to lose what we held most precious. Hope amid that suffering. There was a resistance that didn't need weapons or shouting. It was made of small gestures, a look that said we're together, a hand that helped carry a bucket, a piece of fruit hidden to share. I learned to read those signs like maps to escape the darkness, even tired. Even with my body mark, I felt an invisible force holding me, stopping me from giving up. Faith in what can't be seen was what gave me strength to keep going. There were days when the sadness was so great it felt like it wanted to swallow me whole. But then I remembered the stories my mother told about our ancestors, warriors who faced the impossible. That memory was an invisible shield, a shelter against pain. I knew if they survived, so could I the smell of wet earth after rain, the sound of birds at dawn. All that was like a piece of my past I carried with me. The slave quarters could imprison my body, but it couldn't imprison my soul. I learned to listen to the wind, to feel the sun's warmth like a promise that better days would come. Food was scarce. Rest was almost non-existent, but the will to live was greater than everything. The nights were the worst. The silence in the quarters was heavy, full of shadows and unspoken fears. That's when my thoughts flew far away, far from that place. I found myself dreaming of my village, my mother's face, the smell of leaves, and the river's song. It was a refuge no one could take from me. I knew my body was prisoner, but my spirit was free in that dream. The contact with other slaves gave me strength. Every story they told, every song they sang, was a reminder that life continued, even there. We had to be more than bodies working. We needed to be people with stories, with identity. It was there, amid that suffering, that I understood the value of unity alone. The pain was unbearable, but together, we were a force. The quarters were not just a prison, but a place of invisible resistance. I learned to find beauty where it seemed none existed. A stolen smile, a word of kindness, a silent exchange of hope. These small things kept our humanity alive. They tried to erase our past, our culture, our language, but they failed. I whispered to my heart in languages only we understood, prayers. That connected me to my land and ancestors. That connection was my deepest strength. One night I remember like it was today. I was nearly starving, my body exhausted, when an old woman came close and put a piece of bread in my hand without saying a word. She said everything. It was solidarity. It was love. It was life against death. That gave me a new will to fight. In that moment, I understood that resistance was not just surviving, but caring for each other, preserving our humanity even in the worst of times. Little by little, I learned to turn pain into strength, fear into courage. The quarters were a prison, but also a school. I learned to be patient, to watch, to wait for the right moment to act. Even if the action was only keeping hope alive, that place shaped me, broke me, and rebuilt me in a way I never imagined. Today, looking back, I see that those quarters were the place where I discovered what really matters, the ability to resist, to love, and to remember. They wanted to erase me, but I held on to everything that made me human. my story is proof that freedom starts inside us, and even in the worst moments, the flame never goes out. I grew up in the slave quarters, hearing the sound of the whip, the muffled cries of my brothers, and the silence that tried to silence us inside. Life that was a prison of bodies and souls, where the days dragged heavily, marked by pain, fear, and hunger that never let us forget we were slaves. But even inside that hell, I discovered that the true fight was not only against visible chains, but against abandonment, against the cruel attempt to erase our history, our identity. They taught me to forget my family, to become just a number, a tool, but I never could, because inside my chest, I held tightly everything that made me human, the memories of the faces I loved, the stories whispered at night, the dreams of freedom that no one could take away. The slave quarters were made of dark walls, the strong smell of sadness and oppression, but it was also the place where a silent and firm resistance grew inside me. I learned from the elders that resisting was more than surviving. It was keeping the flame of hope alive, and that hope came in small gestures, sharing a piece of bread, protecting a weaker brother, exchanging a knowing look when the overseer passed by. Amid brutality, there was solidarity, and that was our greatest weapon against dehumanization. The nights were long and cold, and fear was a constant shadow. Many succumbed to despair, silence, the pain that seemed to want to steal everything. But I held on tight, repeating to myself the stories my mother told me when I still had a little freedom. Stories of a people who did not bow, who fought against the impossible, who dreamed of the day of freedom. Those stories gave me strength not to give up. Over time, physical pain became just part of the struggle. The greatest battle was keeping hope and courage alive, even when everything around seemed to want to erase them. Gradually, an idea began to rise among us: escape, a dream that seemed impossible, but that grew with the strength of our wills. We knew fleeing was risky, that many would not return, that they might pay with their lives. But freedom was worth the risk, worth the fight, worth every second of fear and planning. We spent hours watching the movements of the masters, the schedules of the guards, studying the terrain and looking for allies who could help us. Every conversation was done in secret. Every gesture was full of hidden meanings. Every exchanged glance was a promise that we were not alone. The fear was real, but it was not greater than the desire to be free. It was one step at a time, a hope that became more and more concrete. Resistance ceased to be just an inner flame and became a silent, collective movement that gave us strength to continue. I saw men and women transforming despair into courage, silence into plans, fear into hope. The slave quarters that once seemed a prison with no exit began to turn into a battlefield for freedom. And it was at that moment that I understood that freedom is not only the absence of chains on the body, but the courage not to leave chains on the mind and spirit. I had to fight not only for myself, but for all those still there, for those who would come after us. This fight was my heritage and my mission. If this story moves you, if you feel this flame inside your chest, I ask you to be part of it. Subscribe to the channel to follow every chapter of this journey that is struggle, pain, hope, and courage. Leave your comment to share what this story awakened in you, because your voice helps keep alive this memory that many try to erase. And if you think it's worth it, share it with those who need to hear this story, so that this resistance grows and is never lost. In the next chapter, I will tell you how courage became action, how hope became a plan, and how we began to turn the dream of freedom into reality. Even knowing that the path would be full of dangers and sacrifices, stay with me, because this story will still surprise you, showing that even in the deepest darkness, the light of freedom never goes out. I saw children born who already arrived in this world with chains around their necks, even without knowing what it was. I saw mothers who had to hide their tears to avoid punishment, because crying was weakness, and weakness brought punishment. Fathers who could only show their anger inside, with clenched fists and bitterness in their mouths, because speaking too much meant jail or worse. It wasn't just the body that was held captive, it was the soul. It was hope they tried to tear from inside us, day after day, year after year. I was one of them, but I saw many people born and grow up in that hell. Children who knew no other world, who had no memory of freedom, who never heard a real you can, only you must. But despite all that, I saw courage, I saw fire, and eyes that never went out. I saw people who, even weak, even hurt, carried the cry of revolt in their chest. I saw children crying from hunger, but with their chests puffed with pride, because they knew they wouldn't bow their heads. I saw mothers making promises at dawn, asking protection for children who, one day, would no longer be slaves. I saw fathers gathering courage to try to run away, even knowing that if they were caught, the return would be worse. But even so, they went. I saw people leaving in the dark, running into the woods, to the Quilombo, to the nothingness where hope was, a little more real than inside that field. The Quilombo was more than a shelter. It was a symbol. It was a fight. It was living resistance. A piece of land where we could still be human. I saw those eyes, those bodies that didn't have much time left, but never gave up. I saw the pain of losing friends, brothers, fathers, mothers, but I also saw the strength to get up, to continue. I saw secrets held in mouths, because words were dangerous weapons. But I heard whispered stories that were beacons for those still alive. I also saw people who tried to adapt, who shrank to avoid suffering, to avoid attention, and that was survival too. The fight wasn't always shouting or fleeing. Sometimes it was in the patience to wait for the right moment, to learn what they could, to save strength for the day luck would turn, and that day had to come. They said we were many, but that strength was in division, in the fear they planted in us. But I saw that strength was in our union, even if hidden, even if silenced. I saw people helping each other, sharing the little they had, dividing pain and hope. I saw black people raising their heads even with the weight of captivity, with violence and humiliation. And I knew that as long as there was one who refused to be just another, the fight stayed alive, because freedom is not just a shout. It's a fire we have to keep burning in our chest. It wasn't easy, of course. The chains were heavy, the runs to escape full of fear and death. But freedom, that word, ran in our veins. I saw it in callous hands, marked backs, tired but shining eyes. That crazy desire that one day, maybe, we would be masters of our own path. I saw that even locked up, locked in the land, body, mind, our minds saw a different future. I saw the dream of becoming who we were before it all started. Those who came after me didn't just carry the pain I had lived. They had to carry the weight of my pain, the pain of those before. And they also had to prepare to face it all again, because cries for freedom always bother those who want to rule. I saw those young people with eyes like knives, wanting to cut the chains of fear, wanting to show we could be more than property, more than numbers, more than the story they wanted to erase. They were the breath of new life, the beginning of something that would not stop when we gathered, telling stories at night in the silence of the yard. My heart would tighten with emotion and fear. Fear because I knew many wouldn't see the change. Many would die trying. But emotion because I knew that fire never went out, never. It was our blood. It was the root of our people screaming never to let memory die. I was lucky to live to see that fire pass to others, to see the fight continue. Because it's not just about my life or theirs, it's about our story, which they tried to hide, but is alive in our veins. And I say with all certainty, as long as there's one who remembers our rules, as long as there's one who refuses to forget, the Colombo will grow, the flame will burn, freedom will come. No matter how many years it takes, how many generations pass, the fight is eternal. And I saw it with my tired but never broken eyes. I saw the courage of a people who, even wounded, never lost dignity. And that, my friend, no one can take from US. Not the whip, not the silence, not forgetfulness. This is the truth I carry with me, as a scar and as a medal, because we were made to resist, to survive and to, one day, be truly free. I saw it happen slowly, between tears, sweat, and blood. And I'm sure those who came after me were living proof that, even in the deepest darkness, the light of freedom never goes out. There were some white people who called themselves good, who spoke softly and acted generous by giving stale bread, old food, scraps they called gifts. They expected us to be grateful, as if the life they gave was a favor, as if we were lucky to be under their rule. I saw in their eyes what was not in their words, a mix of fear, pride, and a cruel desire to keep everything the way it was. It was a game of appearances to deceive and control. These white people used the word kindness as a mask, preaching God and love for others, but in practice the whip, violence, and injustice spoke louder. They didn't see us as people, but as objects, merchandise, labor that brought profit. Their kindness was only to deceive and divide, to keep the system running. It was common to hear that we should be grateful for having a place to sleep, for having food, even if hard and insufficient, and we had to accept this role of gratefulness, of submission, or else came punishment, pain, violence. But I saw that behind those scraps, deep in our chests, there was a fire that never went out. I saw in the people's eyes the desire for freedom, for respect, to be treated like human beings. And it wasn't just that. I also saw those few white people who didn't keep silent in the face of injustice, who had the courage to turn their backs on the system that benefited them. These were truly good people, because they didn't just speak words or give scraps. They risked everything to help those who suffered. They hid fugitives, passed information, faced the danger of being punished or even killed for challenging power. These few good ones were light in the darkness, proof that not all white people were enemies. But this kindness came at a high price. Many were persecuted, silenced, killed. The system did everything to crush those who dared to be just. That's why true kindness was an act of rebellion, a courage that few had. I learned that kindness is not just giving a little. It's facing fear, fighting oppression, choosing justice even when it costs dearly. The truly good are those who don't bow before violence, who don't accept inequality, who choose to stand with the oppressed. I never forgot the false smiles of those fake good ones who wore a mask to keep control and inequality. But I also never forget those who fought, who showed that change is possible, that the fight for freedom is not just ours, it belongs to all who want justice and humanity. These few good ones face a difficult battle against the very world that protects them, against fear and silence that keep things the same. They know the price of freedom because they pay with their own lives so we can dream. I respect these few open-hearted people because only those who risk to change this story know what it means to be free. The others, those who call themselves good but only maintain invisible chains, they don't deserve our respect. I say, kindness that doesn't challenge the system is just another prison. True kindness is fire. It is struggle. it is strength. To resist, it is not fleeing from risk. And that kindness, my brother, is what will truly free us. Because freedom is not a gift, not scraps. It is a hard, sweaty, and full of struggle conquest. It is that courage born in the hearts of the few, who dare to dream and act against the cruel system. I saw it, I lived it, and I know that only those who carry this flame can change the course of our history. Good white people exist, yes, but they are rare. They fight against everything and everyone, risk their skin, refuse to be part of the problem. They are hope, light in the dark night, living proof that the world can be different. And it is for them, and for all of us, that this fight will never end. They told us one day, "You are free, free." The word sounded strange, an empty promise echoing in our hearts. Free? How? Without land, without a home, without family, without anything to hold onto or comfort a weary body. They gave freedom, like throwing a bone to a dog, a crumb, a lie dressed as a dream. I remember well the day I heard that word and thought, now what? What do I do with this freedom that has nowhere to go, no ground, no path? The freedom they gave did not remove the invisible chains binding body and soul. It did not take away the hunger inside, did not heal the loneliness or close the wounds time kept opening. I was free on paper but trapped in life, lost in a world that was not mine, without rights, without voice, without hope. There was no place to plant the seeds of my dreams, no place to raise children with dignity, no home that was a refuge, no family unbroken by sales, by pain, by distance time built between us. They said freedom was a chance to start over, to build a new life, but they didn't even give a start. They just threw us onto the streets, into nowhere, with the weight of a lifetime of suffering on our backs. I walked aimlessly, because being free isn't just leaving prison, isn't just breaking physical chains. Being free means having rights, land, a united family, dignity to live and exist. The freedom they gave was a disguise, an invisible prison, an illusion made to make us believe the fight was over, that we had won something. But the truth was the fight was just beginning. In the despair of having to rebuild everything from nothing, with empty hands and heavy hearts, I saw many on the same path, with lost eyes, not knowing where to go, how to survive. I tried to plant on land that wasn't mine, but the owners wouldn't let me, guarding everything with cold eyes and harsh hands. I tried to reunite the broken family, but many had been sold too far away, and time stole ties we didn't even know existed. The freedom they gave was a cruel game, made to keep the system running, to keep us trapped in misery and hunger. They wanted us to believe everything was fine, that we were lucky to be free. But free from what? From an owner, maybe, but not from hunger, pain, abandonment, fear that still bound us. I took that freedom, not because I wanted it, but because there was no other choice. I took the bone they gave me and made what I could of it. I resisted, I fought, I dreamed even when the world said there was no place for us. I learned freedom isn't something given on a silver platter. It's earned, torn drop by drop, day after day, with sweat, pain, and courage. It's never perfect, never complete, because the world we live in is unjust and wants to keep the invisible chains. Still, freedom is the thread that keeps hope alive inside the chest, that makes us get up every day, shake the dust off, and keep going, even when all seems lost. I saw people who gave up along the way, who got lost in fear, who let pain win. But I also saw those who got up, picked up the pieces, and kept fighting, teaching their children not to forget the value of freedom. The freedom they gave me was small, limited, but the dream I carry inside is immense. And it's this dream that guides me to this day. Because being free is much more than a word. It's life, constant struggle, the right to be whole, to exist with dignity. I don't want freedom only on paper. I want true freedom with land to plant, family to care for, history to tell, and dignity to live. The freedom they gave me is only the beginning, and I'll keep fighting until it's complete for all. Until no one is thrown onto the streets with nothing. Because freedom isn't just mine. It belongs to all who came before and those who will come after. This fight, my brother, is eternal. It runs in the veins of our people, in the memory of our ancestors, in the hope of those who still dream. I know the freedom I have today isn't what I deserve, isn't what I wish for, but it's what I conquered with blood, sweat, and tears, and as long as I breathe, I'll keep fighting, because freedom only matters when it's for everyone, when it's real, full, and just Asterisk Part 9. I grew old, but my true name never left my mind, never died inside me. They gave me many names, many numbers, many faces that weren't mine. But my name, the one my mother gave me, the name that held history, blood, roots, I kept as a precious treasure. I dreamed of it, heard my mother calling me by my true name, felt the warmth of her embrace even when distance seemed like a wall between us. In those dark days, when loneliness pressed down and the world seemed to want to erase me, it was that name that gave me strength to keep breathing, to keep existing. It wasn't just a sound, not just any word. It was my identity, the part of me no one could steal, no matter how hard they tried. My owners wanted me to forget, to become someone else, to get lost in that sea of pain, humiliation, and submission, but I resisted with everything inside my chest. Remembering my name was an act of rebellion, a way to affirm myself in a world that wanted to deny me, that wanted to erase my story, my existence. I saw my brothers and sisters losing their memory, losing their souls, settling for the names they gave, the numbers they marked. But I held tight to my true name because it was my anchor, my root, my safe harbor. Many times, I woke in the middle of the night sweating cold, shouting my mother's name in dreams. And during the day, the longing pulled me down, almost drowning me in an endless sadness. I knew my name was the bridge between past and present, between who I was and who I wanted to be. I never let anyone extinguish that flame, never accepted that my story would be trampled or forgotten. I was made to be a slave, but my name said I was more than that I was someone with value, with rights, with life. And that's why I can look back and feel pride, even carrying all the pain life gave me, because resisting is an immense act of courage, and remembering my name is pure resistance, a declaration of existence. I told this story to my children, to my grandchildren, so they would never forget who they are, where they come from, and where they can go. Because the name we carry is the story of our people, the voice of those who came before, the hope of those who will come after. I've seen many try to erase their roots, thinking forgetting is the way out of pain, but forgetting is losing oneself. It's becoming a slave again, only this time without visible chains. I didn't let that happen to me, and you shouldn't let it happen to you either. My name still lives inside me, even though the years have marked my face and soul with deep scars. It is the light that guides me in the darkest days, the strength that sustains me when the world seems to want to knock me down, the truth I carry with me until the end of my days. I am who I am because I remember who I was, and my name is living proof of that. I never forgot my name, never let it die inside me, and I never will. This is my story. This is my fight. This is my life. And as long as I have a voice, I will Shout my name for the world to hear, so no one ever doubts who I am and where I come from. Because memory is the last resistance, and my name is my victory. If I could speak to the whole world, I wouldn't choose easy words, because our story isn't easy. It's not made of silence or forgetting. I would say it without getting tired. We must fight to remember who we truly are. We cannot let them erase our history, because those who forget the past, who turn their backs on those who came before, are doomed to live the same slavery, only in different forms, more silent, more cruel, with no visible chains, but just as binding. I lived in my own skin what it means to lose everything. They tore me from my mother, gave me another name, made me feel less than human, treated me like a thing. But deep inside I always carried the strength to remember, to resist, to be more than they wanted me to be. Memory is the most powerful weapon we have. It is what keeps the spirit of our people alive. It is what ensures the blood of our ancestors was not shed in vain. When we forget who we were, when we set aside the past, we lose ourselves in darkness and let ourselves be enslaved again without even noticing. I beg you, the one hearing me now, protect this memory. Don't let it die. Tell these stories. Share them with your children, grandchildren, brothers and sisters, so the fight continues. Because freedom is only real when we know where we came from, when we carry the past in our chest with pride and courage. This battle is eternal. It won't end as long as someone is willing to remember and resist. Every story told is another soldier in the fight against forgetting and injustice. The memory of our people is sacred. In it lies the future of our people. From it comes the strength to change the present. If this story moved you, if it made your heart beat stronger, I ask you, from the bottom of my heart, to like this video. That simple act helps spread a voice that must not be silenced. It helps keep alive this memory that cannot be allowed to die. And don't stop at the like. Comment below what this story stirred in you. Share if you know someone who needs to hear this. If you're going to help keep this flame burning, your comment strengthens this network of memory and resistance. It's an act of struggle too. And don't stop here. On our channel, there are many more stories like this. Stories that show the pain, the fight, and the hope of our people. If you want to feel the power of these stories, hear other voices that refuse to be silenced, there's a special playlist made for you. The link is in the description and also in the pinned comments right below. Go there, watch, share, spread these voices. The more we know our history, the stronger we become to change the present and build a just future for all. This is our fight. This is our life. And it only ends when memory is lost. So stay with me. Stay with us on this path. Always remember, those who forget their roots become slaves again, just in a different way. So remember, resist, and tell. Because only then will our story stay alive, pulsing, inspiring, teaching. This is our fight, and it will never end while there is a heart willing to remember. I thank you deeply for being here now, listening to this voice that carries the history of so many who suffered and fought. Let's keep this flame alive together, because memory is what makes us free even when freedom was denied. This is our story, and it must be told, remembered, and honored every day. Don't let this voice die. Be part of this fight. Like, comment, share, watch more stories, because our memory is our strength. The fight goes on, and it depends on you.